Good morning, all. Today we'll be starting with the next chapter, chapter 6 Life Processes. What do you mean by life? Actually, it's very difficult to define life and living organisms. But I know you may be knowing about the properties of living organism, and also you would have studied about the differences between living and non-living things from the smaller classes onwards. So, in this chapter, we will be studying about the different life processes and the main life processes that help an organism to being alive. Chapter 6 Life Processes. Now we will see some of the examples of non-living things and living things. These are the non-living things and the living things which we see in our daily life. And the living things include the plants which we see around us and the animals, including human beings, which can be seen around us. The properties of living organism. The major properties of living organism include movement, growth, nutrition, excretion, respiration, and reproduction. Out of these properties, movement forms the major criterion which determines whether something is alive or not. Movement is actually the major criterion which is used to decide whether something is alive or not. And the movement in animals show movement, plants show movement. Movements in animal is fast and can be observed easily, and movements in plants is slow and observed with difficulty. Can you say the movements in plants? What are the movements shown by the plants? Plants actually show growth related movement, like the movement of plant towards the direction of sunlight, or the movement of root of plant towards the direction of gravity. So such movements are very slow movements and can be observed with difficulty. Now, what do you mean by movement? Movements are actually the changes in the position. And the living things show two types of movements, visible movements and invisible movements. Visible movements are the movements. From the term itself, we can understand visible movements are the movements which can be detected by human eye. For example, if we take an organism like a dog which is sleeping, it's not visibly moving, but there are movements taking place within the body of that particular organism. So such movements which cannot be observed by human senses are called as invisible movements. The changes in the position which cannot be observed by human senses are called as invisible movements. And these invisible movements are major movements which take place at the molecular level. Molecules are present inside the body of an organism, and the movements that take place at the molecular level are called as invisible movements. For example, the entry of nutrients into the cell or release of waste materials are examples for invisible movements which take place at the molecular level. Now, when we take the case of viruses are usually considered as a bridge between living and non-living things. Why it is considered as a bridge between living and non-living things? Once if it is outside the body of the host, it will be completely like a non-living thing. If it enters the body of the host, then it start working with the help of host cell machinery. So viruses are also made up of molecules, but they possess molecular movements only inside the host cells. Outside the host cells, molecular movements are absent. Now we will see why are molecular movements necessary for life. We studied molecular movements. The invisible movements include the molecular movements which take place at the molecular level. And why are these molecular movements necessary for life? Living organisms are well organized structures. We know which is this basic structural and functional unit of a living organism? It is actually the cell. So all the living organisms are made up of cells, and the cells join together to form tissues. Tissues join together to form organs. Organs join together to form organ system, and ultimately form the body of the organism. So the living organism is a well organized structure, and this organization should be maintained by the movement of molecules around all the time. And the movement of molecules help organism to keep repairing and maintaining their structures. When the living organism is affected by its environment, there may be some damages happen, so it has to be maintained, and also it has to be repaired. So the movement of molecules is needed to repair and maintain their structure, and in order to keep the well organized structure, the molecular movement is necessary. So the molecular movements are necessary to keep repairing and maintaining the well organized structure of living organisms. You can see the example of movement of molecules through plasma membrane. Through the plasma membrane, molecules can move inside the cell, and also it can move out of the cell. Now we see life processes. What are life processes? Life processes are maintenance function which take place even when the organisms are in rest to keep living organism alive. These are very important processes that is taking place within the body of an organism to keep the living organism alive. These processes will take place even during the resting time of the living organ. So life processes are the maintenance functions which take place even when the organisms are in rest to keep living organisms alive. Now the major life processes. Major life processes include nutrition, respiration, transportation and excretion. So in this chapter we will be studying about all these four major life processes in detail. In the last section we have studied about the movement that forms a major criterion of living organism or determining the living organism. And there are two types of movements, visible movements and invisible movements. Visible movements are actually movements which can be seen by human, and invisible movements which cannot be detected by the human eyes. So invisible movements are basically the movement of molecules. We studied about the importance of molecular movements in a living organism. So now we have studied in order to make living organisms or organized structure, in order to maintain this organization, there should be maintenance and repairing work taking place within the body of living organism. And for this maintenance and repairing work, molecular movements is happening. Actually, molecular movements leads to the maintenance and the repairing work. And for these maintenance and repairing work, it requires energy. So from where do we get the energy? We usually get the energy from an outside source. We get the energy from an outside source, and the outside source, that is food. So we get the energy from the outside source, that is food. And the process of transfer of energy from outside source, that is food, to inside is called as nutrition. So the process of transfer of energy from outside source, that is food, to inside is called as nutrition. That is nutrition. And basically all the living organisms or the life on the earth actually depends on the carbon based molecules. The life on earth depends on carbon based molecules. So our food source also must be based on carbon based molecules. That's about the nutrition. So we get the energy for maintenance and repairing work that is taking place inside our body from the process of nutrition. That we get the energy from the food, and the process of transfer of energy from outside source, that is food, to inside, that's called as nutrition. We said we get the energy from the outside source food, and this outside source of food is actually a quite varied source of energy. So once inside the body of the organism, it has to be broken down in order to release energy. And this breaking down process actually involves many series of chemical reactions, which include oxidation and reduction reactions. Oxidation and reduction reactions are involved in breakdown of food. And for these chemical reactions to take place, oxygen is important. And the process of breakdown of food with the help of oxygen is called as respiration. This forms another life process. So first we studied about the nutrition. Nutrition is one of the life process. Now it is respiration. Nutrition is actually the process of intake of food, or process of transfer of energy from outside source to inside. That is nutrition. That is one of the life process. And the second one, that is respiration. It involves the breakdown of food by the help of oxygen or by the help of various chemical reactions, including oxidation reduction reaction. So respiration is the next life process. After that, what should happen? Most of the unicellular organisms, they can transfer materials, or they can take gases, or they can exchange the materials with their environment only by the process of diffusion. They don't need any specialized structures. But in case of higher organisms, there are specialized structures necessary for the transport of materials inside the body, and that actually involves the transportation system or the circulatory system. So this next life process which we have to deal with in this chapter, that is transportation, which involves the circulatory system, heart and the blood vessels, which helps to transfer the materials within the body of the organs. Later what happens? This oxygen can be carried by the blood. Carbon dioxide, which is produced as byproduct of respiration, can be carried back by the blood. And also the nutrients which are needed for the cells can be carried by the blood. So these all happen by the help of blood, and that is transportation. After what happens within the cell, the respiration will take place, the breaking down of food will take place, energy will be released, and the byproducts will be formed. And these byproducts has to be excreted out. And this excretion forms the next life process. That is the removal of waste materials from the body. So we will be studying about all these life process in detail in this chapter: nutrition, respiration, transportation, and excretion. These are the 4 life processes which we are going to study in detail in this chapter. Okay, so we'll start with the first life process, that is nutrition. Now we will start with the first major life process, that is nutrition. Nutrition is necessary to provide energy for living organisms. The process by which an organism takes food and utilizes it is called as nutrition. So we can define nutrition as the process by which an organism takes food and utilizes it for the release of energy is called as nutrition. Now we will see the need for nutrition. Organisms need energy to perform various activities. Organisms need various raw materials for growth and repair. So this energy and the raw materials are provided by nutrients. So now we have to see what are nutrients. Nutrients are the materials which provide nutrition to organisms, and the major nutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins and minerals. Modes of nutrition. There are two modes of nutrition: autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition. The mode of nutrition in which an organism prepares its own food. Auto means self. For example, in case of green plants, they prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis. And second type of nutrition is heterotrophic nutrition. The term hetero means others. So the mode of nutrition in which an organism takes food from another organism is called as heterotrophic nutrition. So these are the two types of nutrition. So in this chapter we will be studying about autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition in detail. So in the previous session we have learned about the nutrition, the need for nutrition and the different modes of nutrition. And two different modes of nutrition are autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. And autotrophic nutrition is the type of nutrition which organism prepares its own food. So now we will study about autotrophic nutrition in detail. Autotrophic nutrition is a mode of nutrition in which organism prepares its own food. And usually green plants and blue-green algae will go for the autotrophic mode of nutrition. Even the bacteria which are having chlorophyll can do autotrophic mode of nutrition. And the organism which carry out autotrophic mode of nutrition are called as autotrophs. The organism which actually possess the autotrophic mode of nutrition, they are called as autotrophs. So now we can see autotrophs actually use simple inorganic materials which are available around it, and they use the simple inorganic materials and convert it into what? Convert it into complex high energy molecules of carbohydrates. So usually the autotrophs like green plants, they use the simple inorganic materials and they convert it into complex high energy molecules. We know what happens with the plants. Plants usually go for autotrophic mode of nutrition. That is, plants prepare their own food. That you have been studying it from the smaller classes onwards, that plants prepare their own food by a process called as photosynthesis. So their autotrophic mode of nutrition is called as photosynthesis. So during the process of photosynthesis, what they actually do? They use simple inorganic materials like carbon dioxide, water, minerals, etc. and they convert it into high energy molecules of carbohydrate in the presence of sunlight with the help of chlorophyll. So autotrophic photosynthesis actually is a mode of autotrophic nutrition. Now we will see a very small video about photosynthesis. I hope all of you enjoyed the video. Now we'll see the photosynthesis, the process of photosynthesis in detail. What do you mean by photosynthesis? Actually, I think from the smaller grades onwards, you will be hearing this term. You may be hearing this term. And photosynthesis is actually the process by which the green plants prepare their own food. And during the process of photosynthesis, the solar energy will be converted to form chemical energy, and carbohydrates are formed. During the process of photosynthesis, the solar energy will be converted to chemical energy and the carbohydrates are formed. And the major raw materials involved in the process of photosynthesis are sunlight, is one of the main, it's the main part of photosynthesis. Chlorophyll, chlorophyll is actually green pigment which is present in the leaves, and chloroplast is the cell organelle which contain chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is needed for photosynthesis, and the main role of chlorophyll is the absorption of sunlight. Then the third one is carbon dioxide, that is for the production of carbohydrates, and the carbohydrates is obtained from the atmosphere through small tiny pores which are present in the leaves called as stomata. So the carbon dioxide is available from the atmosphere through the stomata. And the fourth raw material which is needed is water and the dissolved minerals like nitrogen and phosphorus. So these water and the minerals are absorbed from the soil by the roots. So these are the major raw materials involved in the process of photosynthesis or needed for the photosynthesis. So photosynthesis means actually the process of production of food or preparation of food by the green plants, and during this process the solar energy will be converted to form chemical energy, and the carbohydrates, the final products are carbohydrates, and the raw materials needed include, it's important, okay, we have to study the raw materials and from where these raw materials are available for the plants: sunlight, chlorophyll, carbon dioxide, and water and dissolved minerals. These are the major raw materials. You have to make a note of this. Raw materials needed for photosynthesis. Now the main site of photosynthesis. Which is the main site of photosynthesis? It's actually the chloroplast which is present in the leaves. Sometimes it may be in the young stems also. So the chloroplast is the main site of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis takes place in the chloroplast, which is present in the leaves and the young stems. So that's about. Now we will study the main events that take place during photosynthesis. Now the major events of photosynthesis, the major events that take place during the process of photosynthesis. One of the major events is absorption of light energy by the chlorophyll. We have studied the raw materials which are needed for the process of photosynthesis, and the raw materials include sunlight, chlorophyll, carbon dioxide, water and dissolved minerals. So the first main event in photosynthesis is actually the absorption of light energy. We studied chlorophyll is actually needed for the absorption of sunlight. So the absorption of light energy will take place by the help of chlorophyll. And the second main event is conversion of this light energy into chemical energy. The conversion of light energy into chemical energy and splitting of water molecule using this chemical energy into hydrogen and oxygen. Water is H2O. So the splitting of water molecule will take place by the help of this chemical energy to form hydrogen and oxygen. And the third step is the reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. The reduction of carbon dioxide to form carbohydrates. These are the three main events involved in the process of photosynthesis, and this is very important. Usually for the board exam, for 3 marks they used to ask this question: which are the major events involved in the process of photosynthesis. So the first one, I need everyone to study this 3 process thoroughly. So the absorption of light energy by the chlorophyll, that is first. Second, conversion of light energy into chemical energy, and splitting of water molecules to form hydrogen and oxygen. And the third one is the reduction of carbon dioxide to form carbohydrates. And here is the equation of photosynthesis. This equation is also very important. You have to study this equation. That is, carbon dioxide and water in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight forms C6H12O6, that is glucose, and 6O2, the byproducts 6O2 and H2O. This will go out by the process of transpiration, and 6CO2 will be moving out through the stomata. So this is the equation of photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight leads to the formation of glucose, that is the carbohydrate, and the byproducts are oxygen and the water. So this is about the process of photosynthesis, and these steps which are involved in the process of photosynthesis need not be taken place in this correct order. This need not be taken place. It can happen in any of the order. We said this events need not take place in correct order. For example, if we take, this is also important, in case of desert plants, what happens is their stomata will not be open during the daytime, because in order to prevent the or avoid the transpiration, water loss. So during the night, they take up carbon dioxide through the stomata. So during the night time, desert plants will take in carbon dioxide. And during the daytime, when the chlorophyll, no, during the daytime when the sunlight is available, so the chlorophyll will absorb the sunlight and the process of photosynthesis will take place during the daytime. Carbon dioxide absorption will take place during the night, and an intermediate compound will be formed, and later during the daytime this intermediate compound will be acted upon by the sunlight, energy from the sunlight. So we learned, for the process of photosynthesis, plants need carbon dioxide and they get the carbon dioxide through stomata. Now we have to see what is stomata. Stomata means they are actually tiny pores which are present in the leaf epidermis. Epidermis, I think you would have studied it in 9th grade, right? So the stomatas are the tiny pores which are present in the leaf epidermis. Mainly, more number of stomatas are present in lower epidermis. That is very important. Keep in mind, many number of stomatas are present in the lower epidermis. The number of stomata, where the number of stomata will be more, is in lower epidermis. In the functions of stomata, that also I have learned in 9th grade. That is exchange of gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen, and also helps in transpiration. Transpiration means the removal of excess water from the leaf. So these are the major functions of stomata. Exchange of gases and also transpiration are the major functions of stomata. Now we will see the structure of stomata. Sometimes you may get diagram. You may have to draw the diagram for your exam. Structure of stomata. So stomata actually involve guard cells. These two cells are called as guard cells. Kidney shaped or bean shaped cells called as guard cells, and surrounding cells are epidermal cells. So epidermal cells are the guard cells, and these chloroplasts will be present in the guard cells, and this small opening in between this two guard cells, there is a small opening, and that is called as the stomatal pore. That is about the structure of stomata. Stomata has two guard cells surrounded by epidermal cells, and the pore is present in between the guard cells. Now we'll see the how does the opening and closing of stomata will take place. We studied stomata will open, at that time the gases will exchange, transpiration will take place, and then the stomata will close. So how does the opening and closing of this stomatal pore will take place, that we will study now. Opening and closing of stomata. How does the opening and closing of stomata will take place? We studied the structure of stomata, and that we studied it has two guard cells, bean-shaped guard cells, and surrounding epidermal cells. So what happens is, once the water reaches the epidermal cells, the water from the epidermal cells will enter the guard cells. So when the water enters the guard cells, what happens? We studied endosmosis. As a result of endosmosis, what happens? The cell will swells up. So when the water from surrounding cells enters the guard cell, this guard cell will become turgid. It swells up and it will become turgid. So what happens? When it becomes turgid, in between the pore will get open, so that the pore will be open. Then the water, excess water can be removed through this pore. And when the water is released, water is lost from the guard cell. Then the cell shrinks to become flaccid. And when this guard cells shrinks, what happens? They come close together and closes the stomatal pore. That is how the opening and closing of stomata take place. Once again, I'll repeat. During the process of photosynthesis, after the photosynthesis, the byproduct formed as water. So the excess water which are present in the epidermal cells will enter the guard cells. So when the water enters the guard cell, this guard cell will become turgid. It swells up and it will become turgid. So what happens? moves apart, forming the stomatal pore or making the pore open so that the water can be escaped out through this pore. And later when water is lost, what happened to the cells? The cells will shrink and will become flaccid. When the cells shrink, they come close together and will close the stomatal pore. That is what happened. That is how the opening and closing of stomata will take place. So now we'll see the notes. The opening and closing of stomatal pores are controlled by the turgidity of the guard cells. Turgid and flaccid. Turgid means when the water enters, it becomes turgid. So it depends on the turgidity of the guard cells, and when guard cells uptake water from the surrounding cells, they swell to become a turgid structure. Then the stomatal pore will open, and while when water is released, they become flaccid, shrink to close the pore. That is how the opening and closing of stomata take place. Sometimes you may get question regarding the opening and closing of stomata for your board exam. How does the opening and closing of stomata take place? So this is important. Study these points and also the diagram. You must study. So we now learned about the different raw materials needed for photosynthesis. We said carbon dioxide is needed for photosynthesis, chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis, sunlight obviously it is essential for photosynthesis, water is also needed for photosynthesis. There are two activities given in your textbook to show the importance or the necessity of two raw materials. One is chlorophyll. To show the necessity of the chlorophyll, there is an activity given in your textbook, and also there is another activity to show the necessity or the importance of carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. Two activities, activity 6.1 and 6.2. So we will see two videos of these two activities and then come back.
To show that chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis. Materials required: Coleus plant, watch glass, test tube, 2 beakers with water, iodine solution, alcohol, white paper, Bunsen burner, forceps, tripod stand with wire gauge, and dropper. Process: pluck a coleus leaf from plant. Coleus leaf contains both green and non-green areas. Transfer the leaf on a white sheet of paper and draw its outline. Mark the green and non-green areas carefully on it. Now boil this leaf in water to kill it. After boiling in water, again boil it in alcohol. The purpose of boiling leaf in alcohol is that it dissolves greenish part, that is, chlorophyll. Then wash the leaf in cold water and place it in a watch glass. Now pour some drops of iodine solution over it. Compare the leaf with the drawing you had made.
Do plants need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis? Let us verify this by performing an experiment. Requirements: 2 potted plants of same size, glass plate, bell-shaped jar, watch glass, beaker, petri dish, Bunsen burner, forceps, dropper, potassium hydroxide, ethyl alcohol, iodine, water. Procedure: take 2 healthy potted plants which are nearly the same size. Keep them in a dark room for 3 days. Now place each plant on separate glass plates. Place a watch glass containing potassium hydroxide by the side of the plant A. Potassium hydroxide is used to absorb the carbon dioxide. Cover both the plants with separate bell jars. Use Vaseline to seal the bottom of the jars to the glass plates so that the setup is airtight. Keep the plants in sunlight for about 2 hours. Pluck a leaf from each plant. Put the leaves in separate beakers containing ethyl alcohol. Place the beakers in boiling water and heat them. Alcohol will decolorize the leaves by dissolving the chlorophyll present in them. Now wash the leaves with water. Then put iodine solution on both the leaves. Check the leaves for the presence of starch by iodine test. Do both the leaves show the presence of the same amount of starch? Observation: the leaf from pot A remains unchanged in the presence of iodine. Thus, starch is not present in it. The leaf from pot B turns bluish in the presence of iodine. Thus, starch is present in it. What can you conclude from this activity? Potassium hydroxide placed near the pot A absorbs all the carbon dioxide. Hence, plant A cannot perform photosynthesis. Plant B does normal photosynthesis by utilizing carbon dioxide from the surrounding air. The leaf from pot B therefore shows the presence of starch. Thus, this experiment proves that carbon dioxide is necessary for the production of food, in other words, for photosynthesis.
So now we have gone through the activities which shows the importance of chlorophyll and carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. We know water is also important for photosynthesis, and the plants receive the water and dissolved minerals from the soil. And the major nutrients which are present in the water involve nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, magnesium, etc. And this nitrogen is actually important for making proteins and other compounds in plants. And see the significance of photosynthesis. Actually, we know sun is the ultimate source of energy. How does the organisms present in the ecosystems or on the earth receives the solar energy? So only way is through green plants. They do photosynthesis and we depend on green plants for our food. So the photosynthesis is the main way through which solar energy is made available to the different forms of organism, and also helps in maintaining the balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen in air. Photosynthesis is the process which helps to maintain the balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen. So by this we come to the end of the topic autotrophic nutrition. Next topic which we have to study is the second mode of nutrition, that is heterotrophic nutrition, that we'll be studying in the next class. Thank you.